everyone. Welcome to Avaya University and our Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal curriculum. I'm Mike Allen, and this is my partner, Andy Anderson. We're the founders of Avaya and the online communities, A Course in Miracles Village and Enlightenment Village.
In today's teaching from Avaya University and Candace Platter is about abandonment, betrayal, and self-compassion, the healthy path to healing. You will discover how to develop a relationship with the young child inside of you that is still wounded. You'll also learn how to step out of your comfort zone and choose a partner that you can trust and have a healthy, happy relationship with. And you'll learn what role compassion plays in overcoming abandonment and betrayal. All of these amazing insights and more are in this powerful teaching from Avaya University and Candace Platter. We hope you enjoy, apply all of this amazing information into your life, and share it with your friends and family.
And from all of us at Avaya, enjoy your journey, and thanks for letting us be part of it.
Thank you so much for joining us. In this event, we're going to be talking with therapists, doctors, authors, and relationship experts, and they'll be sharing with us tools and strategies to let go of our experiences of abandonment and betrayal so we can live peaceful, powerful lives. Today, our very special guest is Candace Platter, and we are going to talk about abandonment, betrayal, and self-compassion, the healthy path to healing. Thanks for being here, Candace.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be here. Hi, everyone.
All right. Before we dive into any questions, I wanted to share a little bit about you and the work that you've done. Candace is an addiction therapist in private practice, specializing in working with family and other loved ones of people who are struggling with addiction in her unique and signature family addiction therapy program. Candace believes that everyone in the family is affected by addiction and everyone needs to heal. For more than 25 years, she has been helping both addicts and their loved ones understand their dysfunctional behaviors and make healthier life choices, which isn't that really what we all want to be able to do? All right, let's start with our first question. Candace, there are so many forms of addiction. Can you just give us some insight onto what some of those forms are?
Oh, yes. And before I start, I'm going to let people know that my voice is a little bit rough today. I'm sucking on a lozenge and I have my lemon tea and
Perfect.
Honey. So if you hear me get a little bit hoarse, I'll try to come back as soon as I can with it.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay. So for addictions, there are so many forms of addiction. There's the usual suspects of alcohol and drugs and cigarettes and gambling and overspending and eating, whether it's under eating or overeating. There's just so many ways that a person can be addicted. There's internet addiction, there's sex addiction, porn, things like that. And the list just grows, but basically it's an ironic thing with addiction. What we're trying to do is feel better. That's why we use addiction. And for a little while it does, for like 5 or 10 minutes, it does feel better. And then it comes around and bites us on the butt because it isn't a healthy way of doing this. So the way that I see addiction, sometimes it's a little different than what other addiction counselors and therapists feel. I do have different opinions about addiction. Maybe we'll talk about some of those as we go, but
absolutely.
But I see addiction as a symptom of what's underneath it. And when I say that, I don't mean to make it smaller, to diminish that, just saying that it's a symptom. Because sometimes it's a very devastating symptom and sometimes it kills people. But it's really only a symptom of what's happening for the person underneath. And until we get underneath and see why a person needs to sabotage their lives or shoot themselves in the foot, sometimes over and over again, they keep doing that. And what we want to do is be able to stop that from happening and find other ways to feel good.
That leads me right into addictive behaviors. What are some of the behaviors that you're seeing?
Well, I think the ones that I mentioned, definitely.
Yep.
There's a difference between a mood-altering addiction and a mind-altering addiction. I think the way that I would define addiction is it's something that gets in the way of you living your life. It really makes things difficult for you. So sometimes I use the analogy of biting your nails. I mean, biting your nails is a habit.
Yep.
It's not an addiction unless you're biting it to the quick and your fingers are bleeding. That's going to get in the way of your daily life, right? But
Okay.
those kinds of things are not that much of an issue. But when something really affects your life and it really stops you from living the life that you want to live, that's a problem. And when a behavior becomes that way, then you've probably got an addiction on your hands. And the interesting part about addiction is that most people say, well, I'm fine. I mean, I can stop doing whatever it is anytime I want to. I just don't want to. But I can stop if I want to. I just don't want to. So I think what I'll tell the audience right now too is that I am an addict. I have 31 years clean and sober. And the way my addiction started, I was basically an opioid addict for 15 years because I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Most people now know what that disease is. Back in the 70s. And when that happened, Crohn's was a brand new disease. They didn't know what to do with it at all. And so what they did was they gave me lots of addictive prescriptions. They gave me codeine, and they gave me OxyContin, and they gave me Demerol, and they gave me benzos like Valium and that sort of thing. And my body just became addicted to all of it. Even though I didn't really abuse them, I took them every day. So in 1987, I had a breakdown with that and started my recovery. So I understand addiction from a whole lot of different angles. So I want to go back to your question.
Okay.
The question about addictive behaviors, the difference between the mood altering and the mind altering, it's really important to understand that, because alcohol and drugs are your basic mind altering addictions, and things like smoking or gambling or even sex addiction or internet addiction, gaming all night long, or watching too much TV or eating too much chocolate, which I like to do sometimes. If it's a problem in your life, those are mood altering addictions. So anything can become an addiction if it's interfering with your life.
So can you tie these addictive behaviors with folks that have experienced abandonment or betrayal? Do you see a link here?
Yeah, absolutely. When people feel abandoned, when people feel betrayed, they feel so many emotions. They feel shock sometimes. They feel anger. They feel disrespected. They feel all kinds of things. And what I said before about addiction being something to make us feel better, when we don't feel better, and we have every right to feel good as people, we should be feeling good, right? So when we don't feel good, we try to find something that's going to make us feel better. So when people have been abandoned, betrayed, those kinds of feelings come up. Really what's underneath all of that is usually hurt, but it's easier to feel angry or fearful than it is to feel hurt. That's a hard one for people to feel. So you're going to look for something that's going to make you feel better. And here comes an addiction, if you keep using it.
Right. When I was looking at your book, I noticed a lot of folks were mentioning how they overcame addictions to marijuana specifically. This is an interesting question for me. Do you see a lot of people using marijuana to cover up their experiences? Because nowadays it's the non-addictive drug.
It's the thing.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, pot was one of my drugs. I love pot. It took away so much of my shame around having Crohn's. It's a hard disease to have for a lot of reasons. Um, and, you know, it helped me with my social anxiety. It helped me with all kinds of things. I loved the feeling of being high. So giving up pot was possibly more difficult for me than giving up codeine or any of those other drugs. Now, you know, it's being legalized, which means that,
Right.
you know, in Canada, where I am, I'm in Vancouver, it's legal. The government has legalized it across the country. So it's not a question of which provinces, like it is in the States, where it's which state is going to legalize it. And what we're seeing is that more people, it seems like, are coming to use it because it's easier to get. It's cheaper now. Hopefully there'll be some regulation because, you know, sometimes people think that pot is this drug that isn't very dangerous, that isn't, what I can tell you is that the smoke from pot is harsher in the lungs than cigarette smoke. It's harder in the lungs, and people are starting to get lung diseases because of pot. It's also, you know, people think that it's okay to drive with pot, and one of the problems that Canada has, and I think maybe some of your states have, is that there's no real weight. You know, if you pull over a driver, there doesn't seem to be like a breathalyzer for pot.
Oh, right.
I haven't heard of it. If I'm wrong, you know.
Not here. I have not heard of it here either.
Where are you?
I'm in North Carolina. Yes, yeah, it is not legal here, but originally from Massachusetts, which just passed.
Just passed the law.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, this is a problem because there's no way to really regulate it in terms of what's in it or what, you know, being able to stop somebody from driving under the influence, for example. I drove under the influence of pot many times, I will admit, many, many years ago, before we were talking about this. And it was really fun. You know, fast and it was fun. And what I noticed though is that there's no sense of direction. I had to, you know, put my car in reverse and turn around many times but there's no sense, there's no real spatial sense either. So are you in your own lane? It's dangerous. It just is. And I could be in the car that a pot driver hits. You could be, anybody listening could be. It's not a drug that's not dangerous. I don't think there is a drug that doesn't have the potential to be dangerous.
It has some pretty significant anesthetizing properties for us with these issues that we're going through. It kind of has a numbing effect.
It does. But most drugs do. You know, heroin does. Most drugs do. Cocaine, the drugs that are uppers are going to, you know, rev you up, but you're still going to feel different than you feel if you're feeling if you're feeling those kinds of feelings of anger and hurt and all of that. You take some cocaine and you might not feel numb, but you're going to feel different than you felt when you felt those feelings. So the problem, one of the problems with pot that I really want to say, we've all heard about the fentanyl crisis, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So we really have that in Vancouver. We're one of the biggest areas for that. So what people don't understand is that fentanyl is now being found in pot.
Oh.
It's being laced into pot. So you don't know what you're picking up to smoke. So I hope that helps people be more discerning and careful if you're going to use that drug.
Yeah, thank you. I had not heard that they were putting that in there, but that's really scary. Why do some people tend to gravitate towards the addicted person? So here you have someone with an abandonment issue and they're continually repeating those same patterns of going with that addicted person. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because you haven't healed what it is inside you that And I just want to say, me too, because I've had these issues too.
Me too.
We haven't healed what's inside of us that makes us feel as if we deserve that.
Oh, okay.
So one addict, or maybe not an addict, but somebody who isn't trustworthy in whatever way, abandons me or betrays me, and that just makes me feel like I deserve it even more. And because that's my comfort zone, and comfort zones are not healthy, they're just comfortable. It's what we know, the devil we know,
Yep.
right? So if I'm in that place, I'm going to find somebody else who's also going to abandon me and betray me. I didn't deserve it in the first place, but I don't really know that yet. So I'm going to find people who are going to continue to do that to me. And I'm not going to know why it keeps happening. Why does this keep happening to me?
I've asked myself that many times, almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It kind of is. You don't mean it to be, but it kind of is. And so that's why, before we started to talk, before we started the interview, Mary was telling me that she's doing some of her inner work around these issues. And it's so good to do that, because the pain of these issues is there, whether we work on them or we don't. If we don't, I think there are two kinds of pain, and one kind of pain just goes on and on and on and on and on. This could take a while, and on and on and on and on. The other kind of pain goes on and is painful, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel, which isn't there if you're not working on yourself.
It's definitely a hard step to take. At 52, I never thought I'd be taking that step, but it's been amazing. It's really just all you people that are doing this are just been amazing. You talk also about compassion. So how could compassion be useful in overcoming abandonment and betrayal?
Yeah, I'm glad we're going to talk about that. And actually, it is about compassion, but it's mostly about self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
About self-compassion. I grew up with a mother who was very narcissistic. And what that left with me were scars of feeling like nobody really cares about me, nobody has my back, nobody wants to hear anything I have to say, I don't deserve any of the space in the room. That's how I grew up. As I did my work and looked back over my life, it didn't surprise me that my body just kind of imploded on itself and Crohn's developed. It didn't surprise me that addiction developed after that. It was not an easy life for me. And what I didn't know for a really long time that I know today, that I really want to give to you, all of you, even if you can't quite have it today, even if you don't quite get it, I want to let you know that when somebody abandons you or betrays you, it's not about you. Even if you've done something that's untoward, that, you'd like to go back and clean up and wish you could just turn the clock back 10 seconds. Even if you've done something, abandoning you, betraying you is a behavior that the other person is doing. It's a behavior that the other person is choosing. And there are other choices that person could make instead. And they're not. They're choosing the easy way out. They're choosing to abandon you. They're choosing to betray you. They're choosing to hurt you, instead of being able to say, you know what, that wasn't okay with me. Or I'm feeling this and this, and I'd really like to talk to you about that. There are so many other ways to deal with difficulties in relationships. So when somebody hurts you, It's not about you. When you hurt somebody else, think about times when you've hurt somebody in your own life, you know? When you hurt somebody else, that's about your need at that moment to do that. It's not really about the other person.
Huh, funny. That's interesting again.
Yeah, and especially, we were talking about this earlier, when people have been adopted, for example, they feel like they weren't loved enough, they weren't cared about enough, and they go through their whole lives with that feeling, when really it's about the birth parents who weren't able to provide for whatever reason.
I was just going to say that, for whatever reason.
For whatever reason. How can a baby or even a young child be at fault for that? It's not even possible.
So what makes us blame ourselves then?
Well,
that's a tough one, I know.
I have a little bit of an answer. I don't have, I mean, I'm not a genius. I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. I'd be so rich.
I don't believe you. You do, I think.
But, I mean, think of the books we read and the magazines we read and the movies we watch and the songs, like the song, "You're Nobody Till Somebody Loves You."
Yeah, okay.
Think about a song like that was very popular, still kind of is in some circles. Yeah. And when you look at that belief system, that message, it's awful. It's horrible. It's a horrible message. We're so worthy of love. All of us are. There isn't one of us who isn't. But we're nobody till somebody else has to give it to us from the outside. I would rather see all of us give it to ourselves from the inside out than try to get it, looking for love in all the wrong places, right? That song. It's such a theme. It's such a theme. If I'm not loved, if I'm not part of a couple, if I'm not, if I don't have somebody else's attention on me, then I'm nobody. Well, no, not true. Maybe you can revisit that one for yourself.
And that leads me right into a term I heard, self-abandonment.
Yes. So when you do that, when you go, it's such a great one, when you go to the next person who's going to abandon you, the person who's really abandoning you, the most important person who's abandoning you, is sitting on your butt.
Yep, right here.
And so there's a relationship that we need to develop with ourselves that surpasses all of that. I'll give you an example. I like doing inner child work with clients, and I've done a lot of it with me too. It's not the only thing I do by a long shot, but I like it because so many of our belief systems and our ways of being started when we were children. They started there. So there are ages where we are still wounded that we need to heal. So I have in me, I'd say she's maybe 4 or 5. She has a little name. She has a little nickname, and she looks just like me, and except she's younger a lot. And she is so feisty and so strong. She feels my pain. She feels my hurt and my disappointment and my frustration sometimes. But she's also so strong and feisty. And so when I go into those places that we all have of I'm stupid and I'm lazy and I'm ugly and I'm fat, those places.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have a relationship with her now, she says, "No, I'm not. We're not fat and ugly and stupid and lazy. We are not." And I listen. I hear that. I mean, I know this might sound crazy to people.
You know what? 100% it does not sound crazy. It's like your ego sitting right here on your shoulder telling you all those things.
And so when she says to me, we are not that, we aren't, stop it, stop talking to me like that. That's when I say, I'm sorry, you're right. And that compassion just fills me up. I understand now where this came from and why I say those things to myself, why I have those, inner voices. I was going to call them something else, but those inner voices in our heads that tell us these things. But so I understand it, but that doesn't always mean it completely goes away. But it's so much better for me now because I do understand it, because I've gotten beneath the symptom of what this was really about for me. And as a result, my Crohn's disease is so much better
Fantastic.
than it's been, because I'm much better. I'm much gentler with myself. I make sure that I eat well, that I sleep well. If something's wrong with me, I go get it taken care of. Yeah, I'm my own best advocate now. That wasn't always the case.
I was going to ask you, how can we learn to love ourselves? But I think you just answered that beautifully by taking care of yourself.
Yeah. In my book, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit, but in my book, I have probably the biggest chapter is about self-care. I feel like the queen of self-care.
It seems like everyone, all the listeners would know what self-care is. What is self-care? Tell me what do you mean when you say self-care?
Okay, self-care is doing for ourselves what we've been looking to others to do for us. And the thing is that it isn't anybody else's job, and it isn't something that anybody else can do for us anyway. It's an inside job. It comes from the inside out. And we either want to care about ourselves that way or we don't. And some people don't. And that's unfortunate, because to me, it's a choice about whether we take care of ourselves or we don't. But when we need somebody else to take care of us, we're setting up being disappointed and maybe even abandoned, maybe even betrayed. Everybody's living their own lives. You're not supposed to take care of me. You're supposed to take care of you, and that's how it is for everybody. So if somebody isn't taking care of themselves, and we want that person who isn't particularly emotionally healthy to take care of us, we've got a problem.
And again, that's leading right back into that addiction of, I'm going to just speak for myself, and I'm guessing that a lot of our viewers might, or some of them have experienced this. I have always gravitated towards somebody that I had to take care of. Always. It's just, that's my thing.
Sometimes that's about, if I can take care of somebody else, then I'm worthy. Then I'm a good person. Sometimes it's about, excuse me, sometimes it's about, if I take care of the other person, then maybe they'll take care of me too. But when we set it up to be the caretaker, the caregiver, there is a difference between a caregiver and a caretaker. But when we set it up to be that person for somebody else, they usually quite like it.
Yeah.
It usually becomes a pattern where they expect us to just keep doing that. They don't give back, especially the people we choose when we've got an abandonment betrayal background.
Right.
We don't choose the healthy ones.
No.
We choose the ones who are working on themselves.
All right. This is a difficult one. I've asked all the people that I've interviewed this question, because this is a struggle I'm having. I've noticed as I've started on my path of breaking free from abandonment that some of my friends and family aren't as open to it as I had thought they would be. I'm thinking that a lot of our viewers also have experienced this. Any recommendations on how to deal with family members and friends? I know it's a tough one.
Well, yeah, it can be quite a tough one, because when we've been abandoned and we've been betrayed, we feel really lonely inside. We feel like nobody gets us, nobody really understands us, nobody has our back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we start to work on ourselves, and the people around us who, I don't like this word, I don't use it often, should be supportive of us, aren't, it triggers that whole thing again.
Right.
So it can, if we let it, it can stop us from doing the work that we need to do on ourselves.
Yeah, they're almost afraid of the change. I actually had a friend say, I would like to have the old Mary back.
Yeah.
And
And
wow.
that's about that friend.
Mhm.
That isn't about you. You're doing everything right. That's about that friend who needs to work on herself to find out why she feels that way. She doesn't want to have a friend who is being the best that she can be. Something's wrong with that picture.
Yeah, she wanted the friend that was still drinking and doing all that.
Maybe taking care of her or something like that. So yeah, I mean, people get to know us, especially our family and friends. They get to know colleagues sometimes, you know, fellow students. They get to know us in a certain way. And then when we change, unless they're also doing that changing kind of work, they say to us, okay, who are you and what have you done with Mary? And
Exactly.
I want Mary back. I don't like this new you. As if that's going to make you stop doing it. And maybe for some people it does, and that's really unfortunate. Be your best. Be as bright and shiny and healthy as you can be, as often as possible.
I love that. So as part of our conference, we're giving our viewers, a challenge for every interview. So if you were to give our viewers one challenge to take on right now or a recommendation for an action to take, what would it be?
I think it would be something around developing that relationship with that little young part of you, that part of you that's still wounded, that part of you that needs the adult you to reach out and hug her or him and put them on your lap.
Oh,
and
nice.
and not let anybody hurt them, because that is you.
My mini me.
Your mini
Me inside me.
You got it. And
Yeah.
she's there. She'll always be there. She's always been there. And
Absolutely.
She's been waiting for you. She's been waiting for you.
So Candace, you have an awesome free offer for us today. I'm not going to say anything about it. I want you to give it all to us. So why don't you tell us about it?
Okay. I don't have a copy of my book. I don't know if you do.
I do not.
Okay. I should have had one with me so I could hold it up. My book is called Loving an Addict, Loving Yourself: The Top 10 Survival Tips for Loving Someone with an Addiction. It's an award-winning book. It's used in treatment centers now in North America and even other places in the world. And it's for people who are the loved ones of people with addiction. It's not for the addicts, because when the addicts read it, they get mad because they don't like me because I'm changing the game. I'm changing the rules. But it's for anybody who's in a relationship with an addict of any kind. So what I do is I work exclusively with the families of people who are struggling with addiction. I work with the addicts as well when they're ready to work with me, but I usually start working with the loved ones. And what I'd like to do is for the first 3 people who, who sign up,
Yep, who at the end, there'll be a button at the bottom of this interview, and they'll be able to click on it.
Okay, so for the first 3 people who do that, you will receive the PDF version of my book, and you'll also receive a free 60-minute telephone consultation with me. You'll have to fill out a brief questionnaire to be able to do that, but all you have to do is email me and I'll send you the link for the questionnaire. Once I get that back and I have a sense of what you're dealing with in your life, then we'll set up a time for that free consultation. We'll see what's going on with you.
Yeah, that's so generous. Thank you, Candace, so much for that. That's amazing.
And we'll work with abandonment, betrayal, and everything else.
Okay, where do I sign up? So Candace, give any final thoughts, anything you want to share with us that we haven't talked about so far?
Well, I would say that change is possible. And I'll go a step further, and sometimes this really raises the hackles of people, but to me, it's a choice. It's a choice between not changing and growing and staying stuck in our dysfunctional patterns, or deciding that we would like to have a different kind of life. That's really all it takes. So it's really simple. It's not always easy, but it's really simple. It takes making that choice. And all of us can make that choice. And I hope you do, because I can tell you, it's so much better to live with self-respect than it is to live without it. And I have been both places.
And I'm going to second that, Candace, because 2.5 months ago, I was a completely different person. And I made that choice to make this journey and to start interviewing you folks and finding out exactly what abandonment and betrayal and where it all comes from. And your whole addiction side of it's just been amazing. Here's to our journey to breaking free from abandonment and betrayal. Bye, everyone, and have a terrific day.